welcome back to Dear Career. Good day, I should say, actually, because I don't know what time you're listening to this. It is actually Halloween today for me. I've had quite a morning. I'm going to get into this topic that I want to talk about today, but before I get into it, I kind of wanted to take a moment, and it has been a wild, busy morning for me. It's my baby's first Halloween, so trying to get everything ready, but also I have just been like on the go a little bit lately, which I'm sure is you as well. Just sometimes you're on the go, on the go, on the go, and don't have any moments to breathe. And that has been me. Just had so much to do this morning, getting the baby ready and getting him fed, and we're gonna take him out later. So I was trying to get all of his stuff ready for leaving later. And I thought, okay, maybe I could do a load of laundry while I'm getting him ready and taking his nap, having him take his nap. And I was just moving so fast, and I happened to leave my earbuds and their case inside my pocket. And I threw that in the laundry and I didn't even know. And I went to go look for my earbuds. I wanted to do like a really quick meditation this morning before I was hopping on here to do this, and I was looking for my earbuds, and I had one in my ear, but the other one I was like, "Where's the case?" Where I like to have both when I'm doing a meditation, just so that I can really zone out. And I was looking and looking and looking, and I was like, "It's not on my bed. It's not where I thought I left it." There's a few places I usually leave them. And then I realized, oh, I had it in my pocket. Did I take that out? And I went back and I looked in the washer. It's already going. And I'm like, no, it's not in there. I can't, it's not in there. So I kept looking. I went back to the washer, and I took another look inside, and it started to move a little bit slower. You can see through the glass in this washer. And I see this little tiny screen like light up in the washer, and it's just going. And the light is, like, moving around in a circle, and I'm like, "That's my earbuds." I was able to, pause the washer and take it out, thank goodness, before it went to a full-blown wash, but it was wet, and we'll see, like, hopefully I don't know, what do you do with that? Like, is this like a putting it in rice situation? I don't know. So, right now I have it in my windowsill, um, drying out, trying to see if it can get some sun. I'm gonna take, this little fan I have later and see if I can blow all the air out and see what happens, but that has been my morning. Sometimes I just it just kind of makes me take a moment to pause and recognize, okay, maybe you're moving too fast. You need to take a moment for yourself for other things to go crazy. So I try to do that. It's not the biggest deal in the world. And I'll be completely honest, this was not I called them ear pods, I think, but they're like earbuds. They're not like a name brand. They're not a super expensive one. And I do that for this reason because I can be very clumsy, and I know myself super well. And I know that I'm going to break something or hurt myself or whatever it is. So I try to take precautions. This was a very rip off cheap brand. I don't even know what it's called, but it works, and they're really good. But we didn't spend a lot of money on it, and I'm glad because here I go washing them. And the amount of times I've dropped the case for these earplug things, I don't even know. And the screen's never broken. It has a little screen on the case, and it's never broken until it went into the washer. I pulled it out, it was cracked. So, it's not the end of the world. If I really need another one, I can replace them. But yeah, this is your reminder to make sure you're taking your time, taking a moment to breathe. Especially in the world that moves so fast, sometimes it's just important to just take a moment to pause and um, take care of yourself. Okay, well, let's get into it. I've talked about this slightly before, and I wanted to make time to get on here and do this recording because I think this is an important topic, but I think it's just something people don't necessarily think about, especially as you're a candidate, and that is the candidate experience. What is it? What does it mean? What do I need to think about? So I really wanted to break this down a bit and get into it from the recruiter perspective, and really try to put it in terms where, as a candidate, you can also um, process and understand end to end what that means. Really think about your full experience strategically from a recruitment leader or talent leader perspective. We do try to think about all these little details that go into what a candidate experience is, especially in the world of tech, because it can be quite a competitive market. When we really want to get top talent, we need to make our experience extremely competitive because there's another company who candidates are competing with. And, they might get multiple offers. And sometimes it really does come down to candidate experience. And so, really trying to make a quality candidate experience is so, so important. And it really doesn't matter what industry, but I like to speak in the tech world just because that's where I feel like, from my experience, that's been where I've been able to get a little bit more creative and really be thoughtful in creating the end-to-end candidate experience. And so I want to kind of bring attention to that, break it down so that way you can understand, as a candidate, what should you be looking out for in your candidate experience, to really understand if at the end, if you are getting an offer, if that is the right position for you to take, or that's the right offer for you to take. So let's get into it. Okay, to get started, what is candidate experience? The candidate experience is the end to end experience that you have from the time you apply to a position all the way through the time you're being um, made an offer and accepting an offer. So sometimes the end to end experience can go even further for some people. In the recruitment stage, in sourcing, it's from the time you make contact with the employer, really. So whether that's at a job fair or any kind of interaction or engagement you receive on LinkedIn from a company, or your perspective that you're getting from the company before you even apply. But the real true candidate experience does kind of kick off once the application is received, or once the application is submitted and received. Actually, that's kind of a connected part all the way through, and of your application experience through interviewing and through receiving an offer. Okay. And why is this important? This is important to really look at and scrutinize the candidate experience that you're receiving, because this will help inform you to what kind of employee experience you will have in the workplace. Is it always tried and true? No, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an exact match, but there's a lot you can tell from the candidate experience that will inform you about what your work life experience will be. And that's important because when you're committing to a role, you're committing to a company, and what kind of commitment do you want to make? Is this something, it depends on where you're at in your career and what you want to do in your next chapter. In accepting a position, but in the next position, do you want to be there a long time? Do you really want experience? Do you really just want exposure? What is it that you're seeking from your next opportunity? And what is that going to look like? And so, really, kind of going through the candidate experience will help you understand what it will look like when you're in the role, and how you want to sustain in that role. Will you want to sustain in that role, and what that will look like moving forward? So, and it's also, I would say, important because it's important to understand how you're being treated in the candidate experience, and ultimately, how will you be treated as an employee? They can very much mirror each other. This is your livelihood. This is your potential future, and so it's important to consider that and think about that when you're taking on your next opportunity. Okay, so let's break down what you should be looking out for in your own candidate experience. Let's start with the application process. Now, if you have had any interaction before actually applying to a role, like a recruiter has reached out to you, if you've been to a job fair or some kind of networking event and you had engagement with a company representative or a recruiter, how how was that interaction? What were the kinds of questions you were able to ask? How did they approach you? How, if somebody's reaching out to you, how did they reach out to you? What did they say? What kind of communication do they have? So all that is a little bit before pre-application stage, but those are some things to consider and keep in mind as part of the application process. Okay, now moving into the actual true application process where you are applying to the role. I want you to think about a few different things. Now, I'm going to go through some questions for you to keep in mind as you're going through the process, and feel free to run this episode back and play these questions out as you're going through different phases. So that way, you know a few things that you need to think about. I want to create this kind of content so that way you can always go back and review the information that I put here. And I hope it's really helpful. Anyway, as you're going through the application process, it's a big decision to accept an offer. And so it's really important to be thorough about each of these steps and really thinking through what the next step would be for you. Okay, so moving through the application process, I want you to think about, where did you apply? Was the position a posting on LinkedIn? Was it on a job board like Indeed, like Glassdoor, like so many job boards? Maybe you are at a technical job board. Maybe you were on like a school job board. Sometimes alumni have access to different job boards, and they have an alumni job board, like a career site. Did you apply directly on the company's website? And with that, I highly encourage you to understand, does this company have a career page? Is it a LinkedIn page? Is it an actual career page on their website? And this can tell you a lot. And this is really important to consider. When companies don't have their own dedicated career page, sometimes that could say a few things. It could say maybe hiring is not a priority for them, recruiting and hiring is not a priority for them. Maybe it's candidate experience is not important for them. And that can also be telling. Maybe it's they don't have the resources. They don't have a lot of hands behind their marketing team or anyone who's dedicated to hiring and sourcing to build a career page, because that can take work. It can also represent just general confusion or disorganization on the company themselves. It's pretty basic these days to create a page just for careers, even if it's linked to an Indeed page somehow, or it's linked to another um, kind of career landing page. But a lot of websites now have the ability to create a basic career landing page, and it shouldn't be very difficult. But it's a good question to ask as you're moving along in this application process. Was the application easy? Was the application process easy? Were you able to submit easy? Were the questions clear? Could you understand the questions? Did they have a lot of questions? Was there just a very basic upload your resume and it parses in and that's it? Okay, and typically applications these days do have the equal opportunity set of questions that's usually asking about gender, I identity of race, things like that. It's not required, but it does create an equal and fair application process. And a lot of times that information isn't really being used on the application. And typically employers can't see it if it's set up through an applicant tracking system or on the back end, but it doesn't come up specifically for an application, but it will come up in reporting. And in the reporting on the back end for a recruiter or a hiring team or leadership team will help identify how jobs are being cast, how they're being applied to. So it really encourages leaders or hiring teams to ensure that they're advertising their roles in a really dynamic way, so that way they can continue to receive a diverse set of applicants, whether that's gender diversity, race diversity, age diversity. It really is important for companies to do that, to make sure that they're getting a wide net in their pool to create more equal opportunities. You'll probably see that in the application process. If you don't, it's just something to note. Not all companies have it turned on. Especially if they're small, they may not be able to do that or have ability to do that. But was your application, again, was it easy? Was it difficult? Did it have a ton of questions? Was there an assessment in the application process? Was it quick? Did it take you an hour to complete the application? All of that is really something that a recruiter or a hiring team should be considering when they're really trying to spend time on the application process and the candidate experience. Um, and part of that is because as a recruiter, we know there are so many applicants out there, a ton of jobs. And so we don't want to make candidates jump through hoops or have such a difficult time if they're spending an hour on their application and we are not getting a lot of applicants. That's going to be a problem, partly because people don't want to spend an hour on the application. That's just crazy these days. It's too much time. People don't have that kind of time. And if somebody's dedicating that time as a company, we know we need to really be considerate of that and be very grateful that applicants are even doing that. If candidates are not moving further along in the application process, there's ways for recruiters to track to see where candidates dropped off. If they dropped off at a 30-minute mark or a 45-minute mark or a certain step and stage in the application process, we know there's something that's causing candidates not to apply to this job. And so it's really something that's important for you to consider when you're applying. Like, how difficult or easy was it? Is the application clear? Does it tell you exactly what to do? Does it give you directions? Does it explain or have included the job description? Application should include, you should be able to review a job in detail before you apply to it. So that way you know what you're applying to. Is that clear? Is there any confusion? I would also caution against when you're looking at postings where the job details seem really basic and very minimal. Unless it's a lower level or entry level job, it might be a little bit more basic. But when it's, 3 bullets posted, it really does speak to how much time and effort that company is spending on the application process as well as the candidate hunt. If they're not really spending enough time really looking for quality candidates, it may speak to you know, their desire for talent. And that could mean that maybe they don't care. So it doesn't mean it's true, but it does mean I would caution against really, really basic job postings unless it's completely that is a job. But companies should be spending time really dedicating time to the job posting, making it look good, making it look clear, really illustrating what the minimum qualifications are. So that way they're not receiving a lot of applications that are unqualified for the role. And as a candidate, you should be very clear on what are the minimum job qualifications. Do you qualify for this role? So really thinking through that and understanding if you do, but also can you understand that? Is that clear on the application? Once you've actually been able to apply, what happens right after? Do you receive any kind of communication, whether it's from the system, the employer's automatic message? What does the message say? But there should be some kind of confirmation. This is a big piece where I think a lot of employers fail when it comes to creating a really seamless and thorough, thought out application process, is when they don't think of being in the candidate's shoes. And candidates always wonder, okay, I applied. Did it go through? Did my application go through? Was it received? For companies not to create some kind of notification process or confirmation process or some kind of communication, whether it's automated or having the candidate go back into their application system, it just puts candidates in a gray area, in an unsure place. But you should be very clear that you applied to this job, the application was received, and there's a date it was stamped that your application is received, it's being reviewed, your application has now, you should know which stage you're going to be in. But absolutely, after the application was submitted, there should be some kind of response. And when you don't get that, it can speak to many different things from the company. Are they organized? Do they care? Do they have the structure and resources in place to be able to create automated emails like that? Most systems, even in Indeed, where it's really just a bit of a job board, if an employer is using Indeed to post jobs, there are ways for the employer to create workflows for their candidates where candidates will receive specific emails or notifications at various stages, whether they've been moved forward in the application, moved out of the application process, whatever it is. So these days, I really think there's no excuse. You should be able to have clear communication, clear understanding of where you are in the application stage. Okay, so now moving on to the next stage. If your application, once you've submitted an application, your application is received, and now you're moving into a screening stage, we're going to go through some of those questions again. So, in the screening stage, what do you need to know? The first thing is Are you clear that you're in the screening stage? So like I said previously, being clear on what stage you're at, really important. How are you going to know? Who contacted you to notify you that you're being screened? And this is different than just moving to a screening stage where you're being reviewed by a hiring team, but are you being reviewed in the system? You could be being reviewed by a recruiter or a hiring manager for an initial phone screening, virtual screening, something like that. What kind of screening is it? And that would be part of the question. Like, what is the screening stage? What does that mean? Are you clear and understand what that is? And then, oh, sorry, got my little fur friend over here, Ollie, is in the background and he's dreaming, and having kind of an interesting dream. He's a little whiny in there. Okay, so who's screening you? In this stage, are you clear on, is it the hiring manager? Is it a recruiter? Is it an HR team member? Who's actually screening you in the screening stage? And if you're going through a virtual screening or a phone screening, what is that experience? After each stage, I do want to encourage a little bit of a mini reflection and really take in and absorb, what did I just go through? What did I just experience? So that way you can put it all together at the end. But in this screening stage, were you able to ask questions? What kinds of questions were asked of you after you've gone through any kind of screening? Is it clear on what next steps are going to be? What's the timeline of being contacted for next steps? I'm going to say assess the connection. How was the conversation if it was a phone or virtual screening? How did you feel about the interaction? How did you feel about the communication? How did you feel as far as how you were being treated? What was that overall experience? Okay, now moving into the next stage, which is the interview stage. So, in the interview process, this is the big one. I think this is the one where it takes the most time, it's the most energy and effort from your end as a candidate, from a recruiter perspective. It does take most energy and effort from a coordination perspective, coordinating times, dates from candidates as well as interviewers. And sometimes there's multiple interviewers. So it's a lot that can go on in the interviewing stage. But I would think about, what was the timeline between one stage to the other? Did you have a week in between screening to a first round interview? Was it a month? Those things can tell you a lot. Okay, and then starting out with the who is it that is going to interview you? And actually, let me take a step back. I completely forgot. When you're getting communicated to about the interviewing stage, what did that look like? Did you receive an email confirmation with all the details, or did you have to ask and probe about certain information? Was it clear to you all the interview details? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Who's interviewing you? What time? Where? How should you be prepared? Are all those things included in your interview, or are you having to fish for some of those things? Again, this part can speak to the organization or disorganization of the company. And so, really important to consider that in this process. Now, going back to who's interviewing you. So, who is interviewing you? Is this a first round interview with the hiring person, the hiring manager? Is that clear? Is it clear who the hiring manager is? Is it automatically into a panel interview? Are you interviewing with a group of people and it's just you? And then I kind of to this is, how many rounds of interviews are you going to be going through? Now, I think this is really important when you're thinking about the level of position that you're interviewing for. If you are looking to promote and move to the next level, if you're in a junior level role, moving into a more senior level role, I would expect maybe some more peer type of interviews, a hiring manager interview. Questions should include leadership type of questions to understand your leadership and your high level skills, but I wouldn't really expect manager questions. Now, if you're moving from a senior level to a management position or even a manager to a director, your interview rounds may be a bit more rigorous. So not only potential peers and a hiring manager, but other leaders, other high level leaders, maybe executives, likely an HR interview, behavioral assessments, things like that. So a more rigorous interview process will occur the higher level the position is going to be. So just keep that in mind as positions get a bit more high level. Interviews are going to increase in how difficult they are, as well as who's assessing. As you're in this round of the application process in the interview stage, are you clear on how many rounds of interviews are there? Will there be? Will there be assessments in this round in between? Sometimes I have had hiring teams do a round where they have a homework assignment for an applicant and they do the homework assignment, and then the next group type of panel or roundtable interview is scheduled on top, so that the homework is typically tied to some kind of presentation. The applicant will have to come and do the presentation in front of this group or panel. So is that part of the experience? Will you have to do a presentation? Are you clear on the expectations so that you can deliver on the assignment? Is it a group interview, and how many people are in the group? A panel interview is going to be kind of like a roundtable where you have different individuals interviewing you on one, like a group of people on one, whereas a group interview would be you with other applicants. And there probably are multiple interviewers as well, but it won't just be you. You will know clearly who you are interviewing against. In any of these rounds, I would consider like what was the experience. Now, if you're in a panel interview, it's already going to be highly intimidating. That can be a very intimidating process. But is it you and 10 people? That's extremely intimidating. Is it you and two other people? You and three other people? What does that look like? Obviously, 10 people is an extremely difficult and intimidating round. What was that experience? How did it go? How do you feel about it? How did you feel like you performed? In a group interview, it's a little harder to assess how you did compared to someone else, because sometimes you don't really know exactly what interviewers are looking for. And I don't see group interviews very often, but sometimes they will come up, and typically there might be group type of activities to assess, like how well do you work with others. It's usually what it's is being assessed in those kinds of interviews. How well do you collaborate? So it's something that I think will speak to the role and importance from the position. Does the role need to be highly collaborative? What should I be doing here is likely going to be need to collaborate, need to work with others, need to be part of a team in a group interview. Is it a lunch or some kind of eating type of interview? And how do you feel? How comfortable are you? These ones are a little bit tricky because it's really important to stay on neutral topics while also showing your personality. And how do you do that? It's very tricky. And I do think maybe this is worth more of an exploration in a separate episode, because these interviews can be a little bit tricky. Obviously, you want to stay away from um, polarizing topics or topics that are not business focused, especially like things like potentially politics. In partly is because you want to leave little room for yourself to create biases against you. I think that's really important as a candidate, to make sure that you're giving yourself as well a fair opportunity and not being judged inaccurately. Okay, now that was a lot. And I'm just going to take a little bit of a moment, because I know I'm throwing a lot at you. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments, send me a message, let me know. I'm hoping some of this stuff is helpful, but let's keep on tracking. The next step is going to be the reference check stage. As you've moved on in the process and you're moving into final stages, is it clear to you that you are a final candidate? Is that something that you've been made aware of? Typically, a reference stage is going to be that. And what was asked of you in this reference check stage, and how was that handled? Was there an email sent to you with directions? Was it there a system that requested references where you fill out information and then that sends to your references? What was this reference check stage? How was it handled? This stage is, I think, interesting, because I've said this before, but not all companies do participate in a reference check stage. I do think it's helpful and can be really insightful in how an employer can best set up their employee for, or their new hire for success. I don't know that all companies are handling this stage well or effectively or even at all. I think sometimes it can be a little bit touchy for some companies where they may not want to touch this area if they don't know that they're going to handle it right. And I think that's fair. If they feel like they're not handling it right or worried about potential lawsuit or litigation, they may not want to handle the reference check stage. It's not required. So it's really up to the employer, but typically, this is a stage where, if handled appropriately, should be a very clean cut, clear step. It also is a step that can take time. How long between the reference check requests and the next step happens? Is it a few days? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is the employer trying to keep in contact about their status? If an employer submits to you a request for references and then doesn't get back to you for a month, I would say that's really a big concern. At least there should be some kind of touch base with you. At this stage, the employer should be working hard to try to keep you engaged and check in with you and really try to make sure that you're clear on where you're at in the process. If you're one of the final candidates, because references can go to more than one final candidate, but I haven't heard back in 2 weeks, I would have concerns that, maybe they're not doing their best job communicating to you, keeping you engaged, but also they could be being another candidate who's in the final stages. Again, I encourage the action of reflecting and checking in with yourself. Okay, now moving into the final stages, which is typically an offer is being made. So in this stage, which is exciting, you made it there, you're at that final stage, but it's a really still a time for you to continue to evaluate your experience. What led up to the offer? Did you feel like you were cared about throughout that waiting period? Was there clear communication that an offer was coming? What did that look like? Is the process clear as far as maybe someone called you and then an offer got sent? What does that look like? Who's making the offer? I've always been a little bit more strict with my process on my end because I haven't had experiences where hiring managers have said things that they shouldn't be saying in an offer process. And it's really important that my hiring teams are really just taking care of the candidates, showing the right enthusiasm, and being very clear on the offer. Who is making the offer to you, and what does that look like? I I would try to see if you can get a sense. And I'm going to be honest, for me, part of the experience of making an offer is one of the most rewarding and empowering steps I've ever had in my role with the talent. I love making offers to people. It's so rewarding because you know in that moment that you are absolutely transforming someone's life. You're impacting their livelihood. You're empowering them. So there's a lot that can be felt, and I get really excited. I typically get really excited to make an offer. That's like one of my most favorite moments in the day is if I get to make an offer, I want to get it through as fast as possible because I don't want someone waiting for me. But also, I love that experience of giving someone an offer, especially when they're excited. So, is the company excited? Are they excited for you to get started? Are they eager? What does that look like? Do they sound annoyed? Because that can be telling too. So, really think about that. Does the offer feel clear? Are you receiving a fair and worthy offer? And what I mean by that is not, did I get, the highest offer there was available? Or am I expecting? I think this is really important for you as a candidate to also make sure. Yes, we want you to feel empowered and encouraged, but I also don't want you to undersell yourself as a candidate. I want you to be fair, and I want you to really understand where your skills and your experience lie, and where is a fair and worthy offer for yourself. Where does that lie? Where do you think you should be? And I don't want you just pulling these numbers and requirements out of thin air. I want you to have evidence of why a fair and worthy offer is and what does that mean. Now, if you have a master's degree and 10 years experience and you're receiving a really low offer, there's a couple things that you want to think about here. Uh, did the company have a reason for that? Are they extremely on a budget? What was happening for their decision making with making the offer? Are they trying to overcompensate for it by giving a bigger bonus? What did that look like? What was that conversation? Now, if you felt like they made an offer and it was fair and just, great. One of the biggest things I think is really important here that I like to encourage my female applicants, my clients, this is one of the most difficult parts of the process is trying to negotiate an offer. And I think as women, that can be, it's a very scary thing. But a lot of times I do see, especially with clients, devaluing their worth and not going and asking for what they're worth. And I do need to push my audience here and really have you think about that. What stops you from negotiating an offer and why? And so I don't know how many times I've been in the process where I've wanted to see more of a female come back and try to negotiate, but a lot of times I'll see men negotiate and not women. It's really important for you to assess your offer, and really feel like it's a fair and worthy offer. And I do want to encourage you to try to negotiate if you're open and willing. One of the things that I think is really important and key here is when the company is making an offer, did they allow you time to review and think about the offer at hand? This is key. If a company is trying to rush you to make a decision and you're not ready, that's not good. You should have the time, and also think about the start date. There should be some time in between where a company makes an offer and then you have a start. I wouldn't want to see someone make an offer on a Friday and say, "Well, we'd love to start you on Monday." That is crazy. And I say that for many different reasons. From HR perspective, to get somebody hired, there's paperwork that has to be filed, processed. A lot of times, from an IT perspective, equipment needs to be set up and deployed for the employee. If it's on site, someone might need to be issued badges, login information, just a bunch of stuff. In order to have a good, smooth onboarding, there needs to be time put into making sure that new hire is ready to go. And so if the company is pushing to get you started right away, it could be really telling. Why? Why do they need to get you started right away? Why can't they wait at least a week? Especially if you are already working, a company should allow and respect that you have a current position and you need time to give notice. And that's really fair. Not all companies require that, of course, but a good standing expectation. The bigger and higher level role you have, the more time you may need to transition. I have seen higher level individuals take a month before they can start their next position, and that's fair. Most individuals would take 2 weeks. That's pretty standard here in the US, taking 2 weeks. In other countries, some companies require that they give like a 3 month notice before they can take on another position. So it just depends on where you're at, but the same thing stands. There should be time in between. I I would expect a company to make an offer and allow you time to think before you accept. You shouldn't accept on the spot. Please don't do that. And it's good to have time as a candidate to review your offer, think about it, and decide what you want to do. Don't feel like you're rushed or back into a corner. That's not a good place to be. But also, I don't want to encourage that. I want you to have discussions with your family, maybe talk to a trusted friend about it, a trusted colleague, or trusted somebody that you feel like you can review the numbers with to make sure you're making the right decision. It's such a big decision when you're taking on an offer. And I want you to feel very confident about it. The other thing is connected to this, and I talked about this a little earlier, is the negotiation stage. What does that look like? Are you able to negotiate? How difficult was it to have a negotiation process or a conversation? Was it difficult because you were feeling uncomfortable, or was it difficult because the company was not allowing it and discouraging it and giving you a lot of pushback? What does that look like? What does that mean? In this process of negotiation and accepting, I do want to encourage reflection on what does your growth trajectory look like in this position? Will you be allowed opportunities to promote, to elevate up, to have a growth plan? What does that look like for you in the company, in the role that you're accepting? And then upward mobility. What does that look like? So I really want to encourage these things. And then as you've kind of closed things out and moved into accepting an offer, if that's what is in the books for you, I want you to think about the transition of moving into employee experience. All these things that we just talked about, all these pieces that we broke down about the different stages, think about that in the employee experience. How are you going to start the position? And we might maybe that again, leave in the comments if you want to learn a little bit more about employee experience. I know that's more of a workplace episode versus a candidate type of episode, but let me know if that's something you're interested in. We can talk about employee experience, but I think the biggest thing is, what does the transition look like? Is it clear that you're moving from the offer stage to the employee experience? Did you need to fill out paperwork online digitally? Do you have to go into a workplace and fill out papers? What does that look like? I think in today's world, especially with AI being involved, this onboarding experience should be more and more seamless, moving from an application stage to employee experience stage. And so there should be a smooth transition from the stages so that you know you're clear, you know when you're going to start, you know who your hiring manager is, you know who the team is, whether it's an applicant tracking system that moves into an HR system, or you're getting made an offer in an HR system, whatever that is. There should be a digital way for you to see your offer, accept your offer, and see where you are as far as moving into the onboarding stage. It should be seamless. Is it seamless? Ask yourself that question. Okay. We talked about so much today. It was a lot. No, I started out this episode with a story, but I wanted to get on here and spend some time really going through this topic because I know it's important, and there will be some questions from my other episodes. So I thought it was important to spend time on this. But let me know if it was helpful. I look forward to some other topics, and if you all have ideas, please send them my way. I want to make sure I'm covering as many different things and topics as I can. Um, I know a lot of the topics I'm going through are based on my library series where I was in the library teaching and community members had questions. And so a lot of the topics come from that experience. But I would love to hear more. I want to get into it and I want to be as helpful as possible. But that's all I have today. I'm going to go hopefully enjoy our Halloween, and um, we'll see how the first Halloween goes this year for me. Anyways, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.